if you didn't have a part-time job, there was a time you stopped working. So how were you able to cope with your financial responsibilities, example, paying your rent and other bills? And were you receiving salary from your church?
No, when we started the church, I worked for a year, maybe 1.5 years. And then I discovered that I needed to leave that job. Partly was because I needed to do more to make the church grow, but not just because of that, but also mostly because the work was becoming a burden to me. So I left the job. So when I left the job, of course, I needed to, at a point, I needed to leave my apartment. I was living in a 3-bedroom apartment, so I had to go back to a 1-bedroom. Then I couldn't pay for that. So I went to live in the dormitory, in the hostel, and sharing one room with some students. You just have to pay the price that you need to pay.
Wow.
There are stages like that in life. Then I used to have a car, an official car from the job. So I had to let the car go and just have to begin to use public transport, because I knew that that's the price. I needed to pass through that stage, and that it will not be for long. If I will invest myself more energetically in the ministry, it will yield results very fast, and that stage will soon come to pass in my life. And it even got to a time that I couldn't pay for the rent, because the money I had from the church was not enough to pay for the rent even. So every month I would go to the director of the building and explain everything to him, and try to reason with him, for him to reason with me. And so sometimes I was owing up to 6 months. And just, persuading him and asking for God's favor. But then we upset others' loan eventually, as the church was growing anyway.
Wow.
So there's always a stage, a transition stage in the life of everybody between where you are and where you're going. God demands you to release what is in your hand before he could give you what's in his hand.
Wow.
It does. If God says, I want to give you something first without you releasing what is in your hand. Like I'm having this in my hand, I'm holding it tight. If I'm afraid of releasing the little that I have in my hand, God, I will not be able to, I would have no hand to receive the big, the greater that God has. So that's the stage of faith. God wants me to, by faith, release what I have. Then my hand is free to be able to take the bigger, the little I have, I let go, to take the greater and the bigger that God has in his hand. So until I release the little in my hand by faith, there will be a risk before this gets to my hand. My hand is still empty, but it's just a little time if I could believe. And if I could believe, the greater will still come.
Wow. Wow.